Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores, making the switches easy with our Healthy Swaps scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift.
Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. We have gathered today to discuss Big Bang Comics. Dean Compton is sitting right over there.
That's a me.
That's a him. That's
a me. Apparently I'm Mario today.
So, the standard question is why Big Bang Comics? Dean Compton, let us know. Okay?
Why not? Let me tell you why. We talk about all kinds of comic books on here. These things just had a charm to them. I remember when I first heard about them after 1963. And I'd been into 1963, and my friend Sean Thomas, his dad, still had all of his 50s and 60s comics. The idea that people would be doing some of that stuff, which is really exciting to me. And I was able, because I'd been exposed to all this stuff, and I was like, I wonder how they're going to, do this. Mm-hmm. And then at the time I was ordering comics, this local DJ started a business, a mail order comics business called, One Night Stand, with, K. One night.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, with a sword. In this thing, I saw a thing for Big Bang Comics, so I bought Dr. Weird #1 of the first Big Bang, and then didn't see him again for years. Then I saw him in a multi-pack. I have no idea where, at some Ollie's equivalent, maybe Big Lots or something. Mm-hmm. And this would have been around 2000, 2001. And then I learned that they had gone to Image. Never really, didn't really stop publishing. Still published today, honestly, through print on demand. Did some stuff with AC around 7 or 8 years ago. They're just fun comics, honestly. This is something where you can feel the love for the medium and the craft and the memories these guys have when you read it. Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker are amazing talents. The primary architects behind the universe. I had the opportunity to interview them around 10 years ago. Really nice guys. I just was always this was so neat that during this time when everything, people were just the 90s, big guns and big babes and 13,000 pouches. There are a lot of people who are trying to counter program. Just if Super Bowl's on, we should put on a romantic comedy on another channel. You're not going to outdraw the Super Bowl. Let's see if we can get a demographic, women in this case, that historically don't watch the Super Bowl. It's changing, but that was historically what you thought. So here's these guys who are look at all this that's out there. Let's do something different. They had this idea they would build this universe from scratch and bring it up to date, which when they jumped to Image, Eric Larson and Jim Valentino were don't do that part. We already do that better than you can. This retro pastiche stuff, that's
bring it on. Right.
And they also, they got you aware of guys like Shelley Moldoff and Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, Silver Age talent in the 90s, getting some work that they might not have gotten, and also, getting their names out there a little bit in a way that they might not have been. I don't know if I'd be such a Swanderson fan if it wasn't for the cover of the Big Bang Crisis in issue 3?
Yeah, Crisscross Crisis.
Crisscross Crisis, yeah. So it's all that kind of stuff. Great guys doing fun stuff that was decidedly different from what was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it struck me that, number one, I've heard of Big Bang Comics, but I didn't know specifically what they were about. We've mentioned Carlson's name on here a couple times, if I remember correctly, in some past
he did
episodes.
Megaton, Vanguard, right. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 90s.
That's right. So Big Bang, I'd never picked up.
And he discovered Eric Larson and Rob Liefeld, honestly. He's the guy. He was one of the first guys. He was one of the first guys to let them do work that he paid them for that wasn't just work they were putting out. You know, Angel Medina also had some early work in Megaton. So this guy had an eye for talent, knew what he wanted to do. And it's a shame. He's the kind of guy, you know how in wrestling we were like, I wish Paul Heyman would have had WCW's money in 1997. Gary Carlson's kind of that guy. You wish he had the money of a bigger publisher because he's always had this vision that winds up being slightly ahead of its time. He's always known where the business was going, but never had the financial wherewithal to get it there.
I like the description that you used, which is counter programming. When you open up these issues, you can probably tell what you're going to get just by looking at the cover, but it's definitely a throwback in these early issues. You know, you're getting something that is
it's like golden age through silver age to modern age.
Right.
When they go to Image, they don't do any more modern age. It's just golden age, silver age, and early bronze age stuff. Later on, Darren Goodhart will do some homage stuff to the Jim Starlin 70s Warlock Thanos saga. They don't just do this stuff, but they kind of grow in that way. They never do modern superheroes again, as far as I know.
Well, Darry, how about you, man? Big Bang Comics, did you see any on the shelves? Do you remember picking any up? Did you ever have any exposure to them prior to the podcast tonight?
I did not read any Big Bang when it was coming out originally. I read some of it later. Particularly, there's a Batman analog called the Night Watchman. There's a Frank Miller, The Dark Knight Returns version of that called Night Watchman, The Graveyard Shift. And I read that just because I saw a house ad for it in some back issue and I liked it. But no, I had never read any of the series through, so this was the first time.
So you never read when like Savage Dragon shows up in the Big Bang universe? Because I figured Savage Dragon might have been a connection because there were like Night Watchman and Big Bang backups in Savage Dragon for a while, and you're a Savage Dragon mark.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that I did that. A lot of that stuff blends together because Larson's really good at putting in tons of backup characters, and he's got his own Silver and Golden Age spoof characters that show up, and he's public domain characters. So I think
it is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
a lot of it blended together, but reading it on its own and being aware of what they were referencing, I thought it was really good. Again, I can't imagine picking this up in 94 or 95 because it feels like something that came out 30 years before. So,
right. Because you didn't have my refined taste at the time.
Absolutely did not. No,
I was
I can guarantee that.
Good. This shit's good now and it will be good forever. You were over there like, give me that homage swimsuit issue, baby.
It's true. It's very
Voodoo
true.
is wearing a thong and I cannot handle it. Don't laugh, you were in Cyberforce.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my goodness. Sideblade's got to be in one of those pinups, I'm assuming.
Here's my metal ass, fanboys.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, your budget's limited. Plus, this is the 90s. This is like the extreme era of stuff happening. To go out and purchase this, you would have had to have been ahead of time, you know, as a kid anyway. Somebody who's a little bit older probably had more appreciation of what they were trying to attempt here. So, yeah.
I think I've always been a weird guy in that, like, when I get into something, I always learn about all the history of it as fast as I can. When I was a kid into baseball, I read everything about baseball history. When I started getting into comic books, one of the people who got me into them, like our local DJ, Ben Johnson, he was older. So he would automatically, like, you guys seem to have come into comics on your own, kind of, or with your peers. But an older guy was like, hey, you might take a look at this. So then I would ask him questions, and he would be like, oh, they didn't used to do this. And so I think that kind of shaped my perception. I was like, oh, this could be good. Between that experience and, like I've told you, reading my friend Sean Thomas's dad's comics and Ben Johnson being able to tell me this stuff, I think it made me more open to something like Big Bang. They're trying to get that field across in a way that if your peers or you just saw the X-Men cartoon, it probably would take you longer to develop that appreciation for the history of comics.
I don't know if I would have been able to separate myself from... And this is 94. spring of 94 that this is hitting.
Made a difference like later on when it came out from Image? Like if this had came out from Image, would you have cared? Or did you just shit on 1963 the same way? I'm being serious because like you had a very strong brand loyalty to that lowercase I. It's a great logo. You got to give Rob Liefeld a lot of credit for that logo. It is eye-popping to this day. But like I wonder like if they had put like later on it's an Image book, but if when you were in your heyday prime buying books, if it had that Image eye, would you have been more likely to give it a chance regardless of what was on the cover?
I'm going to repeat something that I have said on here quite a few times, and I'm sorry you guys get tired of me saying and talking about this.
I never get tired of you.
Well, I
That's
know
my secret. I'm always tired of you.
Dean knows the story about how upset I became when Supreme took Alan Moore on as a writer.
What? Hey, what's wrong with you?
There's a sizable minority of people that Jesse is the vanguard of that did not want that to change. Go on, Jesse. I'm not trying to steal your thunder.
Oh, you're fine, dude. No,
this isn't as unpopular an opinion as you think.
Darry's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well,
I'm shocked. I'm not, of all the things I thought you were going to say, not in the top 10.
As a reader, my taste has evolved to now. But back then, I did not care for repeating the same stuff that I'd heard of in Silver Age or Golden Age Superman or whatever in an Image comic. So if you throw the eye on this back then, I feel like I'm going to avoid it just as much. What's going to happen is I'm going to walk into my comic store. I'm going to crack it open. I was very visual back then. I didn't know my writers as well as I knew who my artists were. Right. I knew who Rob Liefeld was. I knew who Jim Lee was. And if I crack this open and I see an homage to Golden Age and Silver Age storytelling and art would be the first thing I would see. I would then shut the book and then go look for the swimsuit special.
Right.
I mean, that was just me.
There's got to be an issue of Union here I ain't read.
So yeah, as far as the Image, that's a long way of saying no. Unfortunately, I don't think it would. Now, as I'm reading this, I understand what they were trying to do with this. I would not have understood back then. Right. In 94, I would not have understood what was going on, what they were attempting to do.
Without my influences, and also Hero Illustrated #6 had like a 2-page write-up on it that I remember reading and being like, this sounds good. They sold it very well. And I think Preview said something about it too, where I'm like, this is going to be interesting. It makes perfect sense from where you're at. Like, and if you weren't into if you're not into Alan Moore Supreme, I don't know that Tom King's Dr. Weird is going to do it for you. It's weird. I wanted my version of these stories. And so this is going to be mine, where I didn't have to chase down those old ones, and maybe this would grow into something. And also, going back to the Supreme thing, it's not an unpopular opinion. I like them both. I think there's a bunch of cool shit in both. But most people draw this crazy line. I'd say it's like 80% pro Moore, 85%, but that other 15 to 20% is wow.
Well, and Darry, I've wrote one letter to a comic book, and it was after I read that first issue that Alan Moore took over. That was the only letter I ever wrote to a publisher or anything because I was so upset about it.
I don't even know you.
Well, yeah. So I drew the line, but
I'm happy you spoke up. I really am. I'm sitting here in shock. I genuinely can't believe it.
I appreciate it. I went back. I think.
Oh, you like what you like. I'm not faulting anyone. It's so funny to me because I think most people, when I talk to them and I say Supreme, they assume I'm talking about the Alan Moore run.
Alan Moore run, right?
And I've read the earlier stuff. It's different, but it's certainly not bad.
I hear you. Well, getting back to Big Bang Comics, we're starting with issue 0. I mean, there's really not.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I was going to say there's really not much.
It didn't come out until later. But
hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun, Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino-style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free, and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
They made this a 0 because they ran out of space.
Chronologically, there's some stories in here. And much of what we get in these early issues, and I think what I want to do is I'll do the first 3. There's 5 issues. So yeah, I'll try and do the first 3 and then just follow my lead. Here we go.
That sounded inspiring.
Issue number 0. And I want to just go quickly through the stories. All right. Title, creative team, and legitimately 1 or 2 sentences as to what happened in the story for the issue. So issue number 0, our first story is The Time Crimes of Grandfather Clock, featuring the Night Watchman. The only credit I saw was Tom King, so I assume it was written and drawn by Tom King.
Tom King's fake, yeah.
Okay. Darry, please step in here, because I don't know what that is.
Tom King is a writer, and he was not working in 1994. Oh. The way Tom King is written on here, it's supposed to be Bob Kane. It's how Bob Kane used to sign his work.
See, this is why I need you guys here.
All the credits on these issues are very confusing because they're all made to seem like fake people. There's a fake Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. There's a fake Bob Kane. Actually, it works on an even better meta level. In real life, we now know after 80 years of behind the scenes stuff that Bob Kane actually drew very little of Batman. So it's even more fitting that Tom King does not exist and it was drawn by someone else, because most of Bob Kane's Batman stuff was drawn by other people he paid and refused to acknowledge.
Chris Ecker is who wrote and drew this.
Okay. All right. I'm going to need you guys to step in here for every single one of these stories in these next issues.
Noticed, I got to be honest.
There are some that are just straight up credited, like Oz the Cop.
I forgot
That's Gary
about Oz the
Carlson.
Cop.
That's one of the funniest. I still laugh at that, like when I read it this time. I've read it for 20 years. I'm like, he's sleepy.
I completely missed that in the synopsis. Do you remember what issue that happened in? Because,
no.
Okay, just remember Oz the Cop there at some point. The Time Crimes of Grandfather Clock, the Night Watchman foils the villainous Grandfather Clock's plan to rob a bank. So that's our first story in the issue 0. A lot of time-related puns here. I appreciate that. I do.
It's a grandiose plan for very little return.
Story number 2 is Thunder Girl and the Robber Robot. Mild-mannered Molly Wilson turns into Thunder Girl with a lightning strike to take on a giant robot terrorizing the town. When the robot escapes with the bank vault, she tracks the robot to its controller and is surprised to find Dr. High Q Banana, a super intelligent monkey, behind it all.
It happens.
After a quick fight, Thunder Girl puts Dr. Banana behind bars at the local zoo. Next up.
It's not even, you got to say it right, because it's supposed to rhyme with Dr. Sivana, right?
Oh, so my God.
It's Dr. Banana. Really like, oh, God.
Wow. See, it's lost on me here. And back then, I would have been fucking like, I would have no idea.
I'm not saying that if you told me that the Shazam family in the 40s fought an intelligent monkey and then he routinely trounced them in a Mojo Jojo fashion, I wouldn't believe you. I was very excited to see that they led with Thunder Girl, the Mary Marvel analog, as opposed to just bringing in a version of Captain Marvel. I thought that was nice. And the Alex Ross cover on issue 0 is something that I was aware of as a Shazam fan before I even read Big Bang Comics.
Yeah, I don't even know that she's a Mary Marvel analog so much as she is their Captain Marvel analog.
Oh, sure. I just meant the way she was drawn and the fact that
for sure. It's cool that they're using a lady. She doesn't wind up with the family, the spinster.
Though I am not a fan of Bob Kane. There's one of the stories in here that goes out of their way of naming one of the supporting characters after Bill Finger. So I will say that the people who made Big Bang are well aware of their history. Like they are not... Yeah. Casuals. Oh, yeah. They know their stuff, which is great because as a kid, I definitely had no idea who the Bill Finger was. So the fact that it was in here is something I appreciated as an adult.
So the next one is Dr. Weird. And it's a Dr. Weird story. He's weird. So created by Howard Keltner. Help me out, guys. Is that anything that I'm actual person?
Yeah, that's a real person. Dr. Weird was a fanzine character, one of the very first ones, and eventually, I don't know how they wound up buying him from that estate. He was in several fanzines and actually had his own comic for like 2 issues. One issue features work by George R.R. Martin and Jim Starlin. They reprinted it in the 90s when I had it. But yeah, Dr. Weird's like a guy who dies before he was born, so now he's a ghost specter guy. He's a time traveler. He came back to the past before he was born, and then somebody killed him. They're like, well, you can't go to heaven because you died before you were born, so now do this
specter shit.
Specter Doctor Strange stuff. Honestly, more of Phantom Stranger-esque. Really comes across more that way. But yeah, he's a cool character. Ooh, working on him. Dr.
Weird investigates. The name of the story is The Curse of the Mummy. of a Hollywood starlet at the set of a film. As the culprit initially appears to be a mummy driven by a curse, Weird finds that it was the director dressed as the mummy to do the deed. However, things get strange when the real mummy awakens and tries to kill the director himself, and actually succeeds. So there you go. That is The Curse of the Mummy. Any thoughts on that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This is obviously like what they were doing at this point was like this like golden age into silver age into modern age.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is kind of that 50s story. Late 40s, early 50s, got an EC vibe, not nearly as gory, obviously. But the whole, this guy killed somebody, now he's going to lesson from the supernatural. And Dr. Weird's there to guide you through. It's a lot of fun. Just like, you have to be in the mindset. Once you're in the mindset, you're like, these guys did a great job evoking the eras they're trying to evoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first started reading this issue, and as we see the Night Watchman story, it's black and white. Then our next story almost has this kind of like Archie feel to it. Granted, it was a little bit more.
It's very much like the Fawcett books of the Golden Age. You go back and look at them. They're big. They're colorful. Look at the logos for Master Comics or Captain Marvel Adventures. With Thunder Girl, they definitely knew they were trying to make you feel like, I don't know who did that story. I forget.
I don't think it had the credits in there. It just said created by Howard Keltner. I looked for credits, but
Thunder Girl.
Oh, Thunder Girl. I'm sorry. No, I do not know. It did not have it on there. I looked twice.
It could have been C.C. Beck himself. It was that. It really evoked the era that well.
Darry, you got any thoughts on the Dr. Weird story?
I like Dr. Weird because of what Dean said. He really reminded me of the Phantom Stranger, which is a character I have a soft spot for. I have no idea why.
Great.
You do think he's great. I feel like most people have no idea who he is.
By design. He doesn't want them to.
Yeah.
He's the Phantom Stranger. He's not the Phantom Best Man. He's not the Phantom Friend. He's the Phantom Stranger. Like, who's that? You're like, exactly.
Oh, man.
I was really excited to find out his origin, that time travel thing, because I thought that would have been great. I wish that had been in here. I think that would have really hooked a lot of people, because that sounds like a very interesting premise. But it was included in the timeline, and then it made me want to go out and read more. But obviously, finding the fanzine reprints in 2024 is not going to be an easy thing to do. So.
All right, moving on to issue number 1, we have our first Night Watchman story. A great thing about these books, at least these next couple issues, is that I've got a synopsis that was already written right at the beginning of every single, right when we get in the table of contents. Here we go. An amazing new criminal, name of the story, by the way, the man called Mr. Mask. An amazing new criminal is on the loose in Midway City. Mr. Mask, the man with the flexible face, can make himself look like everybody else. How can the Night Watchman defeat a foe who could be anyone? Oh, yeah, we got the man called Mr. Mask here. That story here. Dean, what do you think of it?
I really liked it. I think they did a great job evoking the Golden Age Joker. Mr. Mask looks ferocious. It felt like a Golden Age tale on one level. Some of the stuff's drawn that way, and Mr. Mask has that really grotesque look like the old school Joker. On the other hand, it felt a little like Batman 66, and then I really enjoyed it. If you're a fan of Batman, you can just read this and be like, oh, that's a Batman story. They managed to separate this stuff. And it's true with the Zero issue, too, especially with Thunder Girl, if you ask me, where it's like, are you a fan of Batman? Yeah, but Night Watchman somehow separates itself from its inspiration. Thunder Girl separates herself from Captain Marvel. And I think that's pure love. I think you can just tell these guys love doing this so much. You meet them a little farther along than you might if somebody was just like, oh, well, I'm going to do a little Silver Age homage thing. It'll be great, But like these guys are like, I cannot wait. And and since you feel that, I think that like Night Watchman is one of those characters that just, he becomes more than his inspiration, which is really, really tough to do with the homage stuff like this. But I think in a lot of cases they pull it off. And Night Watchman is one where you'd be like, how much could you pull it off? Because it can evoke Batman pretty hardcore, but they do get there. And I think also because as much as we keep saying Batman, probably owes almost as much to the Black Hood, who rode a motorcycle like that, who had the full hood like that. The Archie.
MLJ, okay.
Yeah. Like, not the one with Impact, where they reimagined the concept. But if you look at the 83 relaunch of the 60s stuff, or even the Golden Age and Pulp magazine stuff, you can kind of see how the Black Hood influenced this, as well as Batman.
Yeah, it is a tough thing to take something that you love and you want to create something like it and separate yourself at the same time. You could just tweak a couple things. And again, like you said, it could be low effort and people could see right through that. But if you come out with a heartfelt intent of doing justice to this character and making them pop off the page like Batman did to you, then people are going to see that love that you put into that character and story. I'll agree with you, because as much as I'm sitting there going, okay, this is Golden Age, Silver Age, Batman, so-and-so, you're going to be able to take those parallels and do them. But to tell a good story, it takes a little bit extra to make it pop off. Darry, what are you thinking here of the man called Mr. Mask?
I'm with Dean on this. I thought it was a really good Joker story. It felt like something from the era. I was almost surprised at how the Night Watchman's a very tame version of a Golden Age character. Like Silver Age,
that's where I said the Batman 66 kind of snuck in.
Exactly. If you really want to differentiate the Golden Age from the Silver Age is hokey because they had the code and they weren't allowed to kill, and they really, they were kind of afraid for their job. The Golden Age, those guys killed everyone. Those guys, like, really, someone had to sit them down and be like, wait a second, should they not do this? And it's like, why? Killing a bad guy is not a bad thing to do. And it's like, well, we shouldn't be telling children they should be murdering people, right? And it's like, well, we'll sell more books if they don't murder people, and then we could bring the villains back. It's like, fine, whatever. But that was
more adult audience then too. And what's the difference? Kids are listening to mob stories on the radio, on the news, like they gunned down villains. Now Lev Gleason's crime does not pay is going to destroy this kid. I doubt it.
I agree.
ET is Ryan Seacrest here. People always say it's good to unwind, but that's easier said than done. The exception, Chumba Casino. They actually make it easier done than said, or at least the same. Chumba Casino is an online social casino with hundreds of casino-style games like slots and blackjack. Play for fun. Play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sign up now and collect your free welcome bonus at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
I never particularly bought the argument that violence in the media you feed to these kids is going to turn them into violent people. But I just thought it was funny that, again, when we get to the 90s story, those are 90s comics, right? The Golden Age ones could differentiate themselves from the Silver Age. The art in this book is amazing. It's definitely going for that Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson feel. So I really did appreciate that. And I love at the end when he does my absolute favorite thing in old comics, when a hero pops up and pulls off a rubber mask and they are wearing their superhero costume underneath.
The doctor, too, who was like, oh, yeah, I'm coming here to check on you. I remember his name, like Jacobs or whatever. Like, all of this doctor's like the Mr. Columbo detective.
I love stories where Batman will pull off his mask and he's got his full cowl underneath. And it's just like, I want to see that adapted into live action. I want the kid from Twilight to have to pull off a rubber mask so his whole cowl is underneath, and then he headbutts Bullseye or whatever those movies are about.
Yeah. In real life, you'll ever get, I think, is when in WCW Sting pulled off his Sting mask
and underneath
he was Sting.
Very nice.
Oh man,
got him.
Oh yeah. So next up, I don't know that this next story, The Badge, the Shrine of Crime.
Not only was this rough, but there's a letter in the letters pages of a later issue that points out every problem I had, and the editor or writer is like, nah, we're not racist. You're all crazy.
Oh, all right. Here's our synopsis. This is our preview.
Hate crime is what you call it.
Meet the inscrutable priest and spy known as Buddha, whose job is to corrupt the youth of America with drugs.
Fucking corrupted me fucking sooner. Come corrupt me, Big B. Come corrupt me.
Follow the Badge and his remarkable rookies as they visit Buddha's temple, and they're not going there to worship. So who wants to start with that?
It's so terrible. This was so full of racist caricatures and stereotypes. I think what they were trying to do was just do the story like it would have been done in the Golden Age. This is absolutely how they would have done it. And this is absolutely why we should not have done this in the 90s or now or the 80s. Last night I was watching Nightline. There's a story about descendants of Japanese Americans who had been put in a concentration camp like outside of Denver, finally got this area recognized as like a national monument. And, hey, maybe not do that anymore, you know? And it's shit like this that leads to shit like that, even in countries that are supposed to be well-meaning. You know, on some level, you know, you're like, yeah, World War II was great and Hitler was bad. And one of the things you'll say, well, why was he bad? Well, he had concentration camps. So while there was no extermination plan here, we certainly had concentration camps. And the Supreme Court said it was okay. It's stuff like this. Everybody's like, oh, it's a harmless joke. It's not. That's the problem. It's not. When you normalize this kind of language and this kind of treatment of people who are different than you, Asians, Muslims, gay people, transgendered black people, Latinos, what have you, you know, the mentally and physically disabled, you wind up normalizing a culture where they're seen as less than. And once a person is seen as less than, the sky's the limit on what you can do to them. The sky is the limit on what society will accept until a bunch of people finally force it the other way. And that's why we have to get away from this stuff. That's why it was bad then and it's bad now. I understand why they did this at the time. First off, I know cultural mores were slightly different. And I also understand we were at Falkland War and the Japanese, you know, government had attacked Pearl Harbor and that stuff. I'm not dumb, okay? I went to fourth grade history class. But like when you dig deeper into things, just because something bad happened doesn't mean you can do whatever you want now to people who didn't have shit from apple butter to do with it. You know, what the fuck are we talking about here? So that's why we got to get away from this stuff, you know. And otherwise, it looked very Kirby-esque, and not just Kirby-esque, but 40s Kirby-esque, which is a real trick to pull off, to make it look like Kirby's Sandman or Captain America. And they did a good job because this is obviously a Guardians pastiche, right down to the Newsboy Legion. And I'll let Darry talk for a little bit because I want to just launch my soapbox out of a rocket launcher. You know what I'm saying?
Real quick, the creative team, because I didn't give this at the top. Gary Carlson on story, pencils by Mark Lewis, inks by Jeff Meyer. And I just want to say, scanning through the comic once again, you mentioned earlier, Darry, about they had no compunction killing their villains. And lo and behold, in this issue, that's exactly what happens. One of the villains gets crushed by a large statue, and he just takes his hands. He's like, looks like we're done here.
And it's funny too, right? He does the thing where it says, like, he tells the villain to look out. Like, he's not trying to murder him, but, you know, crime does not pay. Like, this guy's not going home. This story was so weird to me.
Not just crime, but sabotage and treason.
Also being Oriental, I don't know. I don't know if this story had a message because I was shocked by it. Yeah. The whole time I was reading it, and it's only a couple pages long, I was like, is this actually from the 40s? And I didn't know about it. Like, it's so rough. There's one point in this where he says, we're going to gas kids with opium. Like, it's not even a story that's just like
1840s.
I was so confused. I couldn't tell. There's a panel in here that says, the kids are going to a restaurant and it just has words above the door that says Oriental food. I don't understand if this is supposed to be so funny that it loops back around to being dumb, or I can't figure it out. I'm not trying to say that anyone did anything in bad faith, but the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I hope I'm missing something because this is rough.
Yeah.
The other thing I
didn't make a story exactly like you would have read, and you probably should have modernized a little bit of it. Because Gary Carlson's a good guy. I love the dude. Really nice guy. Every time I talk to him, he's always got a little time. Always really cool. But, you know, everybody swings and misses. And this is exactly what you would have read in 1942.
Yeah, I agree. One, I couldn't tell, and I am not as worldly as you two are, but they seem to be mixing Japanese and Chinese stereotypes.
Yeah, it's a big racist bowl of gumbo here.
Okay. See, that was another thing where I was like, if this is intentional, maybe I'm supposed to be laughing at it. I don't know Gary Carlson or anything. I don't think anyone did anything intentionally bad, but I have read a lot of Jack Kirby Golden Age comics. They were never this bad.
Oh, wow.
So I've read every Newsboy Legion, every Kid Commando, every Captain America. They were bad. Don't get me wrong. There were some stories where I was like, that's rough, but this thing, they were never this bad.
Yeah, I mean,
later Kirby said they were bad, but he's like, that's what we did. We were at war. Like, that's what he said.
Yeah.
And whether he's right or wrong, and I think he was wrong, he was like, yeah, these were racist, but that's what you do when you're at work.
Of course, this would have fit in the 40s. There were levels, right?
Exactly.
There's stuff that's never going to be reprinted. Then there's what Eisner did with the Spirit's Sidekick that's really rough, but you thought you were doing what the market and the population wanted. And then there was just outright garbage that shouldn't be reprinted and has no value. This is clearly supposed to be parody of that. And if we give the creators the best of intentions, I think they were trying to do that. I think they were trying to do something that feels like it would have come out back then, and they accomplished that. It's just reading it in 1994, I can't imagine. Reading it today, I was like, this is rough.
Later.
And I just don't know that you get over that hill of like, this is funny, as much as I know what you're making fun of, and I think I get the joke, but I'm not 100% certain. Art's great, though. Art's freaking great.
Art is great. Some stuff's never going to be reprinted. I've heard some people opine that some of the later Captain America comics, Marvel masterworks, that the print run's not big on them, and they're not going to reprint them again for probably a long time because there are a lot of very offensive Asian caricatures in them. But like, they're like, we want to reprint them because we want people to be able to get this complete set. Kind of how the Warner Brothers cartoons, Looney Tunes will have that disclaimer. We're going to present this the way it was, but keep in mind it's different. Like, you want people to have this complete set, but we'd also really rather not. We're also never going to make these evergreen. If you don't get them now, see you again in 30 years.
Man, all I want is the golden age Monster Society of Evil, and the Warner Brothers Discovery Corporation refuses to reprint it because there's a couple of stories in there that are pretty rough. But my Lord, I want that so badly.
I came into this story and I read it going, okay, I know what they're shooting for here, and it sounds like it's just dialed up to 11 in order to shine a light on what it was like back then and what kind of stories were being printed. I can't do much else but echo your guys' concerns. I'm so glad somebody wrote in and was so upset.
Well, you know what? I want to point that out because I like that. You see a lot more in independent comics that the letters page is really used to do what Stan Lee claimed he was doing, which is talking to the audience and having that dialogue in a pre-internet time.
Julie Schwartz was actually doing it at the time.
But Julie Schwartz also comes from very early fandom and stuff.
Stan Lee gets this credit like he invented that. I'm like, bro, Julie Schwartz was doing this several years before Stan and contemporarily.
I'm not giving Stan credit for it. I'm just saying.
Well, I know you're not.
Yeah. My point is that I assume that once a book becomes successful, and certainly Marvel and DC had corporate ownership, they didn't print a lot of letters calling them out on shoddy work. You know, this being an independent book, they were able to print one letter. And if they printed one, they must have gotten many more than he said. He was like, I wasn't trying to be racist. I wasn't trying to offend anyone. So again, that makes me think, oh yeah, you were trying to do a golden age book. I don't know that you succeeded in making something that was entertaining, but you clearly didn't have ill intent. You were trying to do something so that it felt like it fit in there. And I like that it was acknowledged in the letters page, because then it was like, oh, all right, a bunch of people had a problem with this, but I wasn't trying to offend anyone. And I think that's great. I feel like it helps make the Big Bang series incredibly consistent, because it's like, we're not doing this in bad faith. We're doing this because we love this stuff and we want to share it with you guys. So great. Awesome. I'll get the next issue.
I think one of the things is it comes across poorly because this is a fantasy story. Last year, Emily and Jesse and I read Sandman Mystery Theater 1 through 4, and somebody drops the N-word, but it's a very serious story. You don't get as much offense out of it. You're like, okay, this is real. This is like, it's supposed to, you're supposed to take it more like this is actually something that could have happened at this time. Here, since there's a lot of fantasy elements, you're like, we didn't need that to get across the feeling they were trying to give to us.
And to go back and piggyback off the letter, you know, they could have never even acknowledged it. You know, that was just been something. There's no reason, like, that's where there's a bit of integrity there.
I would say a lot of integrity.
Yeah. I mean, they're bringing it out and showing that, okay, this was obviously an issue and here's how we're going to respond.
Let this be a lesson to everybody who's like, I want to go back to the 90s when comics worked. Whoa! Because here we are. People did engage in some racing characters.
Every day when you log into ChumbaCasino.com, the ultimate online social casino, you get a free daily bonus. Imagine if you got daily bonuses in other parts of your life.
I chose French fries over loaded French fries.
I asked Stuart from accounting about his weekend, even though I don't care.
I updated my operating system without having to call tech support.
Collect your free daily bonus at ChumbaCasino.com now. And live the Chumba life. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
People were like, hey, don't do that.
Let's
you
not
know what
do
I mean?
that.
So this isn't something that was invented for the unbeatable Squirrel Girl or whatever nonsense these chud incels say. This is something that's been going on for as long as I've been into comic books, trying to be better people. It's cool.
Comics were made by people who had nowhere else to go, for people, for everyone. So whenever someone says it didn't used to be like this or something else, I'm always just shrug my shoulders and be like, you can go back to the very beginning and finding people saying things like, I was treated poorly, I'm not putting that in my art, or I want to lift everyone up, but I want to tell an entertaining story. Comics have been on the forefront of this way before everyone else, and it continues to be so just by the nature of its industry.
There's no such thing as the good old days. That's what's so great about this, too. It's like they're doing their own thing, but they're not trying to copy anything because you can never go back. There is no good old days. There's just your nostalgia-tinged memories of, like, what was going on. Right now, I hate to tell somebody this, but right now, for some 14-year-old young person, it's the good old days, brother.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I can't wait. I remember seeing the Star Wars prequels in theaters. I was older, so I was like, those were weird, but whatever. I got the old ones. Now you get all these kids and they're like, those movies were great. And the current ones suck. When the kids who saw them and they were 10 and 12 get a little older, they're going to have nostalgia for them. Maybe not as much nostalgia as you had for the old ones, but that's how it works. I mean, my favorite comic book character is the Scarlet Spider. Most people think he's terrible. It's like, I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying that I love him.
Next up, the Beacon, the Razor's Edge. Armed with his mighty power crystal, adventurer Scott Martin battles crime in the guise of the Beacon. Investigating a series of mysterious construction site accidents, the Beacon finds himself face to face with the nefarious Razor. Story by Bud Hansel. Am I missing anything there?
Yes, but I can't put my finger on it.
That's by Tom King.
Sorry. After I recognized the Bob Kane logo and I knew the badge was the Guardian. Past that, I'm in the weeds here, guys. Sorry. I know Golden Age creators, but I don't even know what some of these things are referencing. I'm sorry.
Bud Hansel. Marty Nodell was the creator of the Golden Age Green Lantern, or one of them. But I don't know how that works with Bud Hansel. But I don't think Bud Hansel is real. But go on. This was the tech story, right?
Yeah, this was the tech story.
Yeah. I only skimmed it because I don't like tech stories.
Yeah.
I only read text when I'm reading about stats.
Okay. All right.
I'm just kidding.
All right. Good enough.
But Bud Hansel sounds like a Golden Age creator. If you told me that Bud Hansel created Sandman or something, I'd be like, yeah, fine, great. That sounds good. Do you know why a Golden Age comic would have a text story? Do you know that way back in the day, to get a better rate on mailing and shipping, if you could prove that you were a magazine, you got a better rate. So many Golden Age comics had text pieces in the back. They were just like, write something that we can call a text piece. We don't care what it's about. Stan Lee's first printed work in a Marvel comic was famously a text piece in an issue of Captain America. It was not meant to be a selling point, just had to be included. The fact that there is a throwaway, one-page, complete nonsense story in here was them saying, no, we've actually read Golden Age comics. We're not familiar with them. We read them. We have them. We talked about Centaur Publications when we did the Protectors episode, and it's the same thing. This is a Golden Age trope. You would get to the back, and there would be a text story that no one would ever reference again, but it would be there in case the Postmaster General happened to pick up Detective Comics that month.
Wow.
And this goes on until the 70s. A lot of DC Silver Age. Charlton had them forever. Marvel did them for a long time, but eventually could probably use the bullpen bulletins page to prove it. Because, what do they care? It's like, right. Well, here you go. Here's some words. But I know that, like, into the Silver Age, into the Silver Age, DC was still doing it, and into the 70s, Charlton was.
Venus, the baby napping plot of Madam X. Story by Edward DeGeorge. Art by Randy Zimmerman. Madam X is at it again, trying to destroy the goddess of love and laughter. This time, she's using a purloined Papoose as bait. Join Venus and her bows as they struggle to defeat X's evil scheme. So yeah, we get some Venus here because we didn't have Venus before.
Because we did Venus in Marvel.
Was this the same character though? This is not okay. All right,
it's not the same character.
Same goddess.
But that's the thing; they were all throwing this shit out nonstop at the time, and you know, like there were two Manhunters, two different Thors, two different gods in the late 40s, early 50s. So it's just funny to be like, hey, we're gonna take that one and make it into this, which is a very funny romance story. Madam X rules.
Look, I mean, I'm sure you guys have picked this out already, but I'm going to mention this later. I'm going to have to double check this as we go through it, but I feel like every single book has some kind of a monkey antagonist in it.
Oh, yeah. It does.
Monkey Cell.
That's
okay,
on purpose.
All right. I had a feeling.
Oh, yeah. That's on purpose. Apparently, I don't know if it was Julie Schwartz or Mort Weisinger or someone who worked over there. They couldn't figure out what was going on with their competitors. They looked at everything else and picked the 5 books that were selling very well. 4 of them happened to have monkeys or apes or something on the cover. And someone turned around and go, I guess books sell more when they've got an ape on the cover. It's been referenced and parodied to the point where if you read The Supreme Run by Alan Moore, when that wrapped up, he wrote books at ABC, one of which was Promethea, which had a recurring subplot of its own fictional comic called The Weeping Gorilla Comic Book. That was a callback to this nonsense where DC books from this era always had a monkey on the cover. There were monkey villains, monkey heroes, monkey supporting characters. They were just everywhere. Someone said, every time we put a monkey in here, we get a 20% bump. I don't think that's true. I don't think that was true then. I don't think that's true now. I think that's desperation or someone having a joke and no one caught on. And as a result, you know, you got Titano, you got Garage, you got Detective Chimp. There's dozens of them. I mean, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah, they also, it was like Heroes Crying sold books.
Yes, Weeping.
Red,
so
Red
Weeping Gorilla and the color purple.
Yeah. And dinosaurs were also
that's probably
in this conversation.
To be fair.
You know, the thing is, I think Jim Shooter is 100% right when it comes to this. Because he'll be like, there's no formula to sell a book. You make a good book and you sell a good book. And if you promote it, people will buy it. And if they don't, you make another good book and you promote it and then people will buy it. And if they don't, he's like, eventually one will catch up. But if it's not good, nobody's going to care. You're never going to make anything. So that's the thing is you can slap all the monkeys on anything you want, but like you're not going to catch up to Marvel because you had monkeys on the cover. The go-go checks were another thing they did for this reason. We're going to catch up with Marvel. The reason is kids don't know our books on the spinner rack, so put these go-go checks on the top.
Help me out. What
they look like a Grand Prix races over flag. If you look at 60s,
okay.
You look at 60s DC stuff. A lot of them have that across the top.
Yeah,
they're called go-go checks, and they thought that this would somehow help them outsell Marvel. And as we all know, that was 100% true. Marvel folded in 1968.
They did.
DC reigned supreme to this day.
It's funny you say that because in 68, 69, they did lose Kirby. Kirby went across the street and was like, I'd like the same level of freedom I had back there. And as a result, I will do everything to boost your sales. The first thing they did was said, I don't know, not really. You know, we'll let you do some of your crap. We're really going to rein you in. It's like they go out of their way to shoot themselves in the foot. When they do get a great idea over there, they got to bend over backwards to explain it, right? Like when the British invasion happened in the late 80s, they finally had to start the Vertigo line because they were like, we have to remove this from everything else. They had The Boys for 6 issues and they let it go because they were like, we can't sell a book that has the 7 and sell a book that has a Justice League under the same banner. It's just like there is a reason you can't get out of your own way. I can't believe they're number 2. I truly believe if they didn't have Batman, they wouldn't even be number 2. I think Image would go past them because I don't think any of their books can sell with any regularity. I think if you carved out the Bat mythos, they would drop by about 75%. I don't even think they would be number 2.
Denny O'Neil once said in the 70s, everybody made fad characters, and the way you knew a fad was over is that DC had launched the character.
Yeah.
Right when the Kung Fu movie craze was wrapping up, that's when they get Richard Dragon, and Iron Fist has been going for like 2.5 years at this point.
No.
It's just weird. And then some of their biggest successes, like the Titans, was like an accident. Nobody wanted to do it. Perez, Wolfman and Perez begged to do it. And then Perez was like, oh, I thought it would just be done in 10 or 11 issues. And then it wasn't. They're like, oh, shit, cool. And that's it. They don't really know.
Teen Titans is weird.
What should we do to help make this a bigger hit? I don't know.
Teen Titans is so weird.
I'm over exaggerating, but it seemed that way. Like any hits they had were accidents.
But you're not over exaggerating. With Teen Titans, it's like, oh, George Perez is drawing a book where he's allowed to do design work. Of course, it's going to do well, and it would always do well. But with that book, it was like they didn't even know what to do once they got it. The book was so successful, they were like, "Here, do Crisis." They all put their hands up when they get a really successful title. So much of Teen Titans was just looking across the street and being like, "Well, X-Men's cool. Let's do that."
No, Titans was writing yourself into a book so that you could have sex with a 22-year-old. That's what Teen Titans was.
And there's a further link to this. One of the only reasons that the X-Men revival was so good is because DC told Dave Cockrum, we don't want your designs for your weird-ass Legionnaires. They now became some of the new X-Men, including Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Storm. You know, tiny characters who are in no way household names that continue to be evergreen properties for Marvel Comics. No. They absolutely would not have revitalized the Legionnaires. So, again, thanks, whoever was doing over there. I owe my fandom to you guys.
God, I know who it was. Bridwell? I think he was editing Legion at the time.
No.
It's the guy who I always confused for him. Never mind, I'll come up with it later.
There was Bridwell, who I like. There was Bates, and there was, oh, God, he's got the exclamation point in the middle of his name. I can't think of it right
Elliot
now.
S. Maggin?
Maggin, thank you.
As far as the Venus story, it's silly. There's a lot of silliness. Like I said, there's an over-agitated ape in here. Madam X uses her X guns, which apparently just shoot out X's that will either tie you up or impact your body in some way. I think she uses the X guns on the ass of a rhinoceros at one point. So, silliness.
Whatever she needs to do, X marks the spot.
X marks the spot.
So this Venus story, I actually thought was hilarious. Fun a little bit times. Clamshell that forms into a shield. You know, there's the very famous Venus coming out of the clamshell painting in classic art. Also, That's got other connotations. I'll leave that to your imagination. But there's a lot of humor here. And if you've ever read a Golden Age Wonder Woman comic, like the first couple of years, it reads a lot like this, where the subtext is barely sub. It's mostly text. Even the monkey is holding a stick where his junk should be. Like there's a lot of, there's a lot of funny stuff here where it's like when Venus shows up, she's just another plot point, which is fine. The book is mostly about like at one point.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's like using the trunk to play around with the tied up guy. Like there's a lot of like visual gags here, which I really did appreciate, to say nothing of the fact that one of them, I don't know, steals a baby so that he can try to like get with her. So I actually really like this story. I thought this felt like a parody of something in the Golden Age. I got a kick out of this one, I gotta say.
Yeah, all right. It's like Wonder Woman from the Golden Age.
Yeah.
There's all this innuendo just under the surface, and I think it's always funny to see gods and goddesses portrayed in comic books. Why is the guy with the nephew so Weasley? He's supposed to be a good guy, but he's Weasley.
Well, that's just men back then, you know.
Trying to steal a smooch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy's gonna box a kangaroo. Get it done, buddy.
Seen that Looney Tune before.
Let's get into issue 2 here.
Let's do it.
Oh my goodness. Ultiman versus the Saboteurs. Nazi saboteurs are terrorizing America in Hitler's latest nightmare, a submarine that travels under the ground, not underwater. Only one man stands between them and success. Ultiman, the ultimate human being. Story by Gary Carlson, pencils by John Schuler, inks by Don Simpson. I have one note, because I know you guys have a few. Bro fixed a crack in a dam by launching a car at it and then using some type of heat vision or welded it into the dam.
Do you remember what Thunder Girl did where the building cracked over and she's like, yeah, I'll just put this back up.
Fix it up.
Absolutely 100% fine.
Structurally perfect.
That's not the most egregious thing that he does in this to like harm people. Because Ultraman's also like that sub. He's like, that sub will just go to the center of the earth. It'll be harmless. I'm not so sure that digging a hole to the center of the earth would be harmless based on my limited understanding of geology. I think you might blow up the whole planet, actually.
Could have an issue.
But what do I know? I'm not Ultraman. I'm not the ultimate human, leaping and bounding and bounding and confounding and punching Nazis.
Classic
like
cover here. Ultraman, bending that tank. Tell me, what is that? I guess.
The cannon?
Yeah, the cannon, I guess, would be pointing it back at the Nazi who's trying to get out of said tank. I mean, this was a bit of a throwback. It's hard to look at this stuff and not be like, okay, there's a drill on the front of this thing that's not as wide as the vehicle. It's going to get stuck within 5 feet. But
he did not ask that torpedo's consent when he wrote it like that, because damn.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, Dean. Did you have anything else to say on this one?
I just like it when Nazis get punched. So I don't.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad their submarine didn't work and was stupid, and I'm glad Ultraman, beat the shit out of them.
Oh yeah.
Good Darry, for you. Do it again.
I'm sorry, Darry. Go ahead, man.
No. All I was going to say is this is another book that when I was reading it, it seemed like it was flirting with being. Dean said innuendo before, and that was the perfect one. Because another one, it's like this. Yeah. There's all these real phallic images. And they're all pointing at a place, and at one point he goes, "This is where I get off." Again, as a way of saying, okay, we like Golden Age stories. They don't make comics like that anymore. We're going to make a comic like that. It's like, do you go the extra level and say these jokes probably, if they were in the Golden Age, went over most people's head? We're going to include them, and that's just where I got this. It's like he beats up a bunch of Nazis. He stops this tank or whatever, and he does that. But he also just kind of like, some of the visuals. At one point, he's hoisting this cross. It's just like, were you having a little bit of fun when you were drawing this?
Yeah.
I hope you were. That's where my mind went.
I think that's part of the fun that was had in a lot of Golden Age comics. It's really good stuff that you watch together with your kids. We're like, oh, I got a joke that my kids didn't. You could give this comic to a 6-year-old and it would be fine. But you give it to like a 20 and up, you're going to chuckle at different things.
They're going to start seeing something different.
Exactly.
All right. Next
up. And
up,
that's a good thing, I want to say.
The Night of 1,000 Stars and Stripes. We are going to be discussing The Blitz. When an enemy secret agent plots the destruction of Hollywood to demoralize the free world and gain revenge, he must first deal with the quickest man on the face of the earth. The Blitz gives an award-winning performance in this exciting tale. Story and pencils by Stan Timmons, inks by Gerald DeCare. So Errol Flynn showed up, punched a dude out, if I remember correctly. Errol Flynn.
Yeah, I tried to look into that because Errol Flynn was like, now who'll call me a Nazi sympathizer? Is that a thing? I couldn't find any information about it. Was that a thing? Because I know some people were accused of
blacklisted.
It at the time, but later on it would be worse for people who were pro-communist or what have you. I didn't know if that was just something they threw in, but this one was rip-roaring fun.
Groucho shows up as well. I forgot about that. These guys are all at the Oscars, right? Is it the Oscars we're at? And the big Oscar statue comes to life and starts terrorizing everybody. And so, yeah, it is a good time. Dean, go ahead. Keep talking.
The Blitz is the Flash analog, back from the war, gets to cover this. I don't know exactly who did this one, but whoever did, you can tell they loved this era of cinema. This is a very revered era of cinema for cinemaphiles, of which I am not one. I'm like, let's watch Death Watch 2000, brother. I like movies, but I'm not one of those super movie people who are like, what can you tell me of the golden age of film? I'm like, Katharine Hepburn or something. That's where I'm at. They name all these stars, which are pretty cool. They get involved to help, which makes it seem even more fun. Now it also gives these comics a sense of realism in two ways. As we're reading it, we'll be like, oh man, yeah, they did this in stories back then. But now in the story, it makes it feel real as well, because here they are interacting with a real event and real actors and actresses. So you put all that together, it's got that real, like you almost are waiting for everybody at the end to be like, buy war bonds, and just, And I mean, I genuinely mean this in a good way. You're waiting for that big moment, like this was a big show for everyone there. There was a show within a show for the people at the Oscars. Hats off. I just really enjoy it.
Errol Flynn, The Spy Who Never Was, is a book you can pick up on Amazon. Examines the enigmatic life and career of the box office idol, touching on his love affairs with men and women, manslaughter charges, smuggling, kleptomania, and work for the Nazis. Written by Tony Thomas from 1990.
I looked up this guy, and I found everything except the work for the Nazis. I'm not even like the rest of it. I came across the smuggling, I came across the murdering, I came across the philandering, I came across the underage bride stuff. I was like, where's the Nazi stuff? I did not see that. So,
yeah.
Like Emily would tell you, I could not find oxygen if my lungs weren't the ones looking for it. So maybe I'll have to, maybe I just didn't see it right in front of me.
All right, Darry, any thoughts on the Blitz?
I have a question for you guys. What do you think his costume is? Because it looks like a lizard and it's got a weird red fin, and I could not figure out what he is supposed to look like to save my life. It's yellow with green stripes, but everything is zigzag. What do we think he's supposed to look like?
Oh, man. It's like they tried to get...
Fast. I think he's just look fast.
I never thought I would say the Wizard had a better costume than anyone. And then I looked at this and I was like, no, I'm missing old pea pants now. I really am.
Old peas.
Why are you so mean? That's an invader you're talking about.
That's true. He is an invader. I love the Wizard. Also, that's why I can make fun of him.
Let me tell you this too. He took care of those kids. He took care of kids that weren't his. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, you're still Wanda, Pietro, you style. Love you anyway. You should pay more respect and not call him old pea pants.
Old pea pants.
Piss pants? It's piss pants? He is grown up now.
Piss pants. Oh. Yeah.
Somebody's listening. I hope you're not listening to this in the car because, man, you gotta go.
Rocking back and forth.
If someone is still listening after our DC rant, though, I guess Jesse may stick that at the end.
I don't know, man. I feel like it's just want to get as far away from the Flash as you can. I still don't even think it's that far away, to be honest. But
I like the name The Blitz. I thought that was a good one. But again, in the 40s, Blitz would have been a bad thing. You have like British Blitz. Blitz is like a German word. It wouldn't be something that the world's greatest superhero would call himself. I get what you're going for. I think he even mentioned that he got his powers from Nazi science accidentally or something like that. I don't know. But again, I'm with you on this journey, but I do have questions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last story of the book.
I wanted to say this real quick while we're still talking about the Blitz. What's the last great super speedster name that you've heard?
The last great one?
Yeah. Like, the last one where you're like, oh, that's a good name. That's a good name for a super speed character.
Yeah, they kind of did it with the Flash. It's all downhill from there.
We talked.
Velocity? Is it Velocity?
Oh, look out.
Velocity? Yeah. That's a good name. I like her. She was good. She was a good one.
Jessie Quick is just Jessie Quick. I mean, that's like her name. So, I mean, right?
A really good one I heard was on Ben 10, where he can change into like 10 different hero things. And there's one that is super speedster, and his name is XLR8.
No, that's not bad.
It's not bad.
That's not bad.
The worst one I have ever heard is from Young Avengers. The character's name is just Speed. That's it.
Dude.
Speed.
No, the worst one I've heard was in the Acclaim universe, Jack Rapid.
Wow. Is that the Acclaim universe? Is that the second round of Valiant?
Yeah. Mark Waid, I think, was working on this. So Jack Rapid. It's not very good. But speedsters' names are hard. I'm not even mad at him about it. You're like, at least it makes sense and it's clever. It might be better than Speed for that reason. It's just like, what do you know? I'm fast. You better do drugs or something.
When I have to, this is going to be one of those questions where I'm going to have an answer like 3 days from now, because I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, damn, what is a good speedster name that I've heard? And I guarantee you I'm going to think of one. But
you're gonna be in the shower or something. You're gonna scream the name at the top of your lungs, and your wife's gonna be like, "What the hell's going on?"
I'll fall out of the shower, grab the phone naked in order to text you guys immediately.
Yeah. He's gonna scream the name, and then Velocity's gonna be like, "You're cheating on me." You love another speedster.
Image didn't have a lot of speedsters, right? Did Youngblood have a speedster? I can't think of one.
No, but Heavy Metal did. The Team Supreme led for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forget the kid's name.
Supreme had one. Doc Rocket was the Youngblood.
Doc Rocket.
Yeah.
Then later she was in Youngblood.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
She's in Youngblood. She is the granddaughter, I think, of their version of the Wizard, if I'm remembering correctly.
Meet the human sub. Foreign spies sent to steal the latest invention of brilliant scientist Noah Talbot get the surprise of their lives when they find themselves facing a mechanical marvel instead of a frail old man. Join the human sub on his shakedown cruise as he waves bon voyage to Hitler's henchmen. The old brain and the robot body trick.
Now listen, I just feel like people that do science in the old-timey days should really have had unlisted addresses. Because, like, everybody finds their laboratory. And why are you talking so much about what you're on? Like, wasn't this the era of loose lips sink ships? Shut the fuck up, bro. That's why the Nazis are here, because you bought a Yellow Pages ad that said, working on a great weapon. Anyhow, I love this story, though. If for no other reason did we wind up with a genuine sea monkey. What a nice wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know, anything where they fuck with Nazis, I'm going to be a fan of. But there's something that I really like about this. Honestly, this still has a Golden Age feel, but I feel like they sprinkled just a touch of Thunder Agents in it. Feels like it's got just that little bit of Tower in it, especially because of the No Man comparison. This is a lot like how No Man's origin kind of works, except No Man doesn't have to be in the water.
Who is No Man?
No Man, have you not ever read Thunder Agents?
I have never read Thunder Agents. I'm sorry.
He's an old scientist guy who invents these bodies that have powers, and so he can put his mind into them. But if he runs out of bodies, he'll be dead.
No, I failed you. I have never read Wallace Wood's Thunder Agents. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen, I love it, but it's mostly for skimming. You read the words you need to read. You get that feel. It's great stuff. It's kind of reminded me of that. Wally Wood, so good.
Good stuff. The Human Sub, by the way, story by Chris Ecker, pencils by Mike Ober, inks by Dan O'Connor. Yeah, we get Bubbles the Sea Monkey. That was my other note here. We are cashing in on the primates. And yeah,
poor lady too, who she's like, oh, you just got my dad killed. I put my brain in that body. And she has to do surgery by herself for like 83 hours. You don't set like broken arm by yourself at the hospital, but here she is transplanting brains. Poor lady.
Darry, you got any thoughts on this one?
This one was great because it seemed like a combination of both the Submariner and the original Human Torch, which I liked. I absolutely loved.
Great point.
When the monkey's about to die and the doctor goes, all my plans ruined.
Right, he does not give a shit about that monkey.
Absolutely does not care whatsoever. And then still is saved to become the hero. Like, I love a story where you get just a bad person who learns nothing from their tragedy. And this guy goes on to be a superhero for decades, if I'm reading the timeline correctly. So I got a kick out of that. I love
maybe putting your brain in a robot body. It's like when astronauts go into space and they're like, I didn't think about anything the same after I saw humanity from one, different vantage point. Maybe that's it. Now it's like you can see your body. You can, like maybe you're just like, I gotta be better. I gotta not be an asshole to monkeys.
Good point.
I like that. And I think that's a really good science fiction idea. You do the transhuman thing, right? You become an artificial body and you're like, oh my goodness, I can see our entire life experience from the outside now and I'm going to be less of a dick to everyone. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But it works in the context too, because I feel like a lot of Golden Age characters were, to your point, scientists, or they were standing next to scientists when something easily avoidable happened.
They were newsboys.
Right, exactly.
Hydroglycerin.
Scientists or people standing next to scientists saying things like doc or prof.
Prof.
Yeah. Prof. Yeah. You got to have the hydroglycerin there. You got to have that like it sounds science-y, but it's absolutely 100% not, so we can use it to do whatever the story calls for. I love that.
I feel like it would be prescribed to some people, and like there would be those commercials where people are like, I could never be in the water until I got my hydroglycerin.
Exactly.
Somebody playing water polo or something. Somebody goes underwater, comes up and shakes their head, the water's going everywhere.
Thanks, hydroglycerin.
Right.
Yeah,
your doctor.
You know that on late night TV, there's definitely an ad that runs that says, did you take hydroglycerin? Well, you might be entitled for compensation. Without a doubt, that runs somewhere between the Silver Age and the 90s comic.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, here we go. We've essentially crossed the threshold where we've met most of our characters in the Big Bang universe, and we're getting ready to jump into one massive story, and that is Criss Cross Crisis.
Was this everybody's favorite?
I liked it. I mean,
my favorite.
I'm always down for a good Earth A, Earth B, Earth 1, Earth 2. I love crossovers. So even though I don't know much other than what I just read, and that's really all I needed to understand about these characters, get my introduction to them, and now we get a story that is clearly inspired by Crisis, or some of the, actually more along the lines of
more like Crisis on Earths 1 and 2. The Crisis on Earths, the crises that would lead to the annual JLA JSA team up.
Sorry,
Darry, was this your favorite?
I gotta be honest with you, I like the Venus one a lot. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, you're kinky, so that makes sense.
The Criss Cross Crisis was fine. My main problem with it, though, is it feels like a Justice League Justice Society story. It doesn't feel like we're trying to go back to the Supreme example. Those feel like early Superman stories, but they're different. They have different narratives. They have different resolutions. They have different ways of going about. They have very modern sensibility. This doesn't. This could have been collected with any of the Crisis on Multiple Earths trade paperbacks, and you wouldn't know. I mean, this could Earth A and Earth B could very easily slot into the DC multiverse. Like, I kept expecting to see something really unexpected that wouldn't feel like one of those crossovers, and it never came. So it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I read the whole thing and I was like, oh, that's pretty straightforward. A year from now, are they going to deal with Earth C, where everyone's evil, or Earth D, where there's 100 Thundermen, or something like that?
Well, I think the unexpected thing is that a hero died, and he's actually dead, and that doesn't happen in any of the JSA, JLA stuff.
That's not true.
Who dies in the JSA, JLA crossover?
Wing of the Seven Soldiers of Victory very famously dies. That's what I was thinking of. That's what I thought this was a reference to.
Right. Well, he does, but I mean, which member of the JSA or JLA dies? That's what I think is supposed to be the big thing. And I think it's inspired by Pharaoh Lad and the Legion. Because, like, he's literally going with the bomb far away from them. I think that's what they were trying to evoke there. No major guys, no offense to Wing. I love the Seven Soldiers of Victory. But no major guys ever died in those things. And in fact, I've heard some older fans be like, it got to the point where you didn't buy them because you knew nothing was going to happen. Everything was just going to go back status quo. And this does not, because when we see the modern age Big Bang universe, like, he's died at this instance to save two worlds. Your world and mine. I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I think that's the only big deviation and surprise, which would seem less surprising at this point in comic books, because you had seen it a whole bunch, and you'd have to remember that, with the exception of Wing, God bless him, God bless the Crimson Avenger sidekick. Nobody ever died in one of these things.
I will also say that I liked the resolution where the worlds become completely inaccessible again. I thought that was another way of raising the stakes. The Flashes could always go to different worlds and characters could cross over. It helped everything feel very lived in. Here it was like, nope, you were on the wrong side of the doorway when we saved the world. You're stuck here. Can you send me back? I absolutely cannot. There is no one here who can do that. We do not know how to fix this situation. And she's like, oh, okay. Was not expecting that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes, we'll have to listen. I don't think there are enough of us to hold hands in space to get you home.
Yeah, Mr. Weird kind of just floats in and out.
Dr. Weird?
Dr. Weird. Sorry.
Weird school for 8 years for you to call him Mr. Darry.
I sent this to you guys, but whenever I read this character's name, I think of the same named character from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I was about to mention the Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh, I was so shocked when I was reading Dr. Weird. I was like, No, they can't be the same. They absolutely cannot. So.
Remember that one where he like chopped off his leg with a chainsaw and he's like, I just lost 40 pounds.
I love Aqua.
You can't argue with him. You cannot argue with him. He did lose the weight.
As comfortable as I felt reading this story, knowing where I was, I did not expect the villain to be who it was. I did not expect Dr. Haikyuu Banana to be our big villain. I should have known that. We have this large mechanical ape causing all sorts of trouble.
Right.
And we got this shadowy figure with the cloak on this whole time. You don't get to see who he is until the very end, which I think was pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
And you get the Whiz Kid.
Oh, yes, you do get the Whiz Kids in this.
Yeah, Whizzer is like, now that's terrible because that means you piss. But Whiz Kids is like, oh, are they pissing kids? Don't be dumb.
Oh, listen, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, I got to go take a Whiz Kid. I'll be right back.
Sure. But like we would call somebody a Whiz Kid. And
they're smart. They're brilliant.
We got it. But Whizzer, you're like, are you fast? Really? You sure you don't pee?
Pee pants? I mean, piss pants.
Piss pants? It was cool to see that. Also, remember in this one where the Night Watchman, he's like, can you disable that bomb? And he's like, yeah, I brought the right tools. You brought the right tools to disable an interdimensional bomb made by the world's smartest monkey? You are Batman, aren't you?
He is. My other note here, my last note, both these notes tie in with Dr. Weird. Dr. Weird, I love the fact that he can be the bridge between these two worlds, and he's talking to both of these worlds and both of these teams at the same time. In order to bridge these worlds together, he's got to hold the hands of both Ultimen. He's got to hold, we end up getting a chain of heroes out in space. It's pretty neat.
The Beacons and the Blitzes.
Right. But maybe at the end,
that's the Green Lantern and Flash. They're pals, right? That team up. The Beacon and the Blitz sounds really good. Maybe that's why he's the Blitz.
That's a good point. However, at the end, when Thunder Girl ends up getting stuck, the only thing that Dr. Weird can do to console her is just like, here's a snow globe. And you can look at the world that's the exact same world that you're on. It's like,
kind of a shit ass move, right?
What I was waiting for was like, okay, I know we got one more issue after this. And as I'm reading this, brand new to reading it, are we going to get another story that pulls this into it? That's what I was hoping for. And
Dean,
then,
do they fix this in the ongoing book? I assume you've read that.
Does all this continuity, all this stuff that's set here obviously goes into that book though, right?
A lot of it does, but I don't recall them ever returning Thunder Girl home, but they might have. It's been years since I read all of the Big Bangs, and there's still more I haven't read because they made a lot in the last 8 years.
Honestly, I was hoping that this Crisscross Crisis was going to set something up for this next issue that we were going to get. Like, I know our next issue, we're going to start. I can figure out the pattern here, folks. I can see we're marching through time. I'm curious as to what era.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
We're going to get into next with this next issue, but I was hoping we're going to jump forward in time a little bit and figure out a way to get Thunder Girl back, or something bad is going to happen, or we're going to bridge the worlds again, something along those lines. All that to say,
it probably does happen, and I don't remember, because I mean the Round Table of America meets the characters from 1963, the Tomorrow Syndicate. Mostly what I remember, because I binge read them, I mostly remember the covers. And I remember when the Savage Dragon shows up. He's the pantheon of heroes, like the Legion analog and stuff. I remember it being good. Thunder Girl also has her own book where maybe that gets taken care of.
Okay.
I have not read, sadly.
I enjoyed what I read here.
Speaking of Thunder Girl, do you ever watch that show Kablam with Action League Now?
This sounds familiar.
It's on Nickelodeon. And Action League Now was stop motion with figures, and there were the Flesh, super strong and super naked. And they had this shipwreck that was Stinky Diver. And then they had Thunder Girl flying like thunder.
I'm looking at a still of it right now. I do recall a little bit of this.
This sounds like something you made up. I'm just gonna say no.
It's the same people that made Pete and Pete, I believe.
Yeah.
Pete and Pete, the greatest television show of all time.
That's a weird way to pronounce WKRP in Cincinnati.
God.
Yeah, takes you back right there. All right, I'm done talking. Dean, what'd you have here, man? Anything else?
I thought it was the best story of the bunch. I'd read like a JLA, JSA meetup, but it read really cool to me. These guys were figuring stuff out about each other and themselves, what they had in common, what they didn't. And then there are other questions like, why is there a Thunder Girl analog? Neat things, these little Easter eggs you could come back to. And it was also funny to see Bubbles, the sea monkey, in the lab coat, just messing around because he's joined the Whiz Kids, apparently. Good for him. It's good. I thought the human sub, the atomic sub's sacrifice, it got to me. I thought it was a really great issue.
It's good.
I thought it was great. Even if you guys are laughing at me because WKRP in Cincinnati's great.
I've watched my fair share of episodes.
I had no idea what that was when you said it.
Man, you got a lot to see. It's the greatest show of all time. It's amazing.
Of all the shows you could have said, I was not expecting that one. I love it. I'm very excited.
Classic.
I'm always excited to discover new things. Am I going to watch this? No, probably not. But I'm happy.
We'll send you a highlight around Thanksgiving. I guarantee it.
Yeah, you'll hear about it around Thanksgiving.
All right, Darry, you're up, man. What do you think of this issue?
I thought it was a very good version of what it was doing. It felt like one of those stories. I was almost hoping that they would keep doing this, right? The two worlds, fine, but you eventually build up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. I almost wanted to see the entire alphabet thrown in, the evil versions, the versions of other companies, the Quality, the Charlton, the Centaur.
Here comes the green Salbug.
That's what I'm talking about, like all this other nonsense.
Captain Molecule, you're like Major Molecule.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I liked the use of the character Dr. Weird as the Spectre Phantom Stranger type. I thought that was a really good use. I also like that Big Bang never overcomplicates its stories. Like, it keeps it very simple. What do the characters need to do? There are two machines causing this nonsense. The beacons can tell you exactly where they are. Go deal with them. I like that because it allows you a little bit more time to focus on the characters. Everyone gets something to do, and all the characters look very heroic. Even when they're mourning their friend, which I thought was a very solemn page, because if I'm reading this correctly, he gets buried on a different Earth than he's from. So I thought it was great. I really did. I thought it was exactly what it set out to be. And again, if you were a fan of those stories, then reading this at the time in the sea of everything that was so different in 1994 must have been a welcome breath of fresh air.
You also got that great Spectre callback, where Spectre's holding the Earths apart in that one story, and you get Dr. Weird doing it. So, yeah, just really, really fun stuff.
Yeah, our creative team, Chris Ecker and Gary Carlson. Writing, pencils, Steve Adams. Inks, Jim Brosman. Letters, Chris Ecker. As far as the creative team goes for each one of these books, it's interesting because you want to nail a different feel for each story. So I imagine you got to find some guys that are interested in doing that style.
Yes, you're right. To an extent, you needed to find somebody who was into that style. Chris Ecker was already an artist by this time, but if you were a young artist and they were like, hey, you want to draw this banana story? You want to draw this Venus? Why would you? You said no, you're a fool.
All right. Final issue. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is issue number 4. We have
Things
arrived.
Get extreme.
Yes, and
this is going to make Ozfest look like Woodstock.
We want to get, it's such a departure from what we have seen before. We're jumping 30 years. We have arrived in the 90s. We are about to talk about, I don't even know if this one has a title here. I'd have to look at it again, but I give you the creative team. Story by Gary Carlson, Christopher Ecker. Pencils, Bart Schmitz. Inks on pages 1 through 5 is Ken Lester. Inks on pages 6 through 10, 15 through 25, and cover on Jim Brosman. Inks on pages 11 through 14 is Mark Lewis, and color separations by Heroic Age Colors. Now, like I said, it's a big departure. We don't even get a description as to what we're getting into here. This is very much like when you open this up, it feels like an Image book.
Yes.
And it's not, this is still Big Bang. The Image comes a little later, but a couple years, I think, if I remember correctly, about a year. But yeah, this feels like an Image book when you pop it open.
A year later than what?
This is 94. Don't they go to Image in 96?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think we're early 95 probably at this point. Maybe not. Anyway, I had to do this one myself, so kind of bear with me because I really scrambled through it. A large assassin has infiltrated the former Round Table of America's HQ, looking to kill the human sub, only to find that he had died years prior. Julia Gardner arrives as the Beacon and engages this villain. The assassin targets the gem that gives her power and shatters it. Meanwhile, Ultiman gets a call from his daughter that there is trouble at the Round Table headquarters and heads there to find it a wreck. Ultiman meets up with Night Watchman's, is this his son, or, because he keeps calling him Junior, maybe it's Night Watchman Jr. or something?
No, it's his version of Robin.
All right. So he meets up with Galahad. Is he just still Galahad, or did he take on the new Night Watchman title?
I couldn't figure that out.
I know he gets called Galahad at one point, so I guess we'll just stick with that.
He stays Galahad.
Okay.
He gets the Daredevil treatment at one point, and there's like this story that's like in Frank Miller's vein, and he ninjas up a bunch of people, and I can't remember what comes out of it, but I think he stays Galahad. He never takes over the night. Now, I could be wrong. Again, it's been a long time since I've read it.
Well, it's important to put
and
out
Gary
there that
Carlson and Chris Ecker will probably listen to this, and they'll probably message me and be like, these are all the things you got wrong.
Are they going to listen to this, you think?
I'm their friends. I'm going to send it to them.
You are their friend. Well, you guys are great, and we thank you for your work.
Exactly. We do. We appreciate.
I
mean, you give it us
10 years ago.
No, I do appreciate this because I love Golden Age comics. I'm not too wild on DC and the Silver Age, but I freaking love Golden Age comics. Reading this was a joy. So I'm happy to know that these people were doing this type of work back then.
I interviewed them 10 years ago, and I interviewed Chris Ecker. He was part of a round table on comic books and wrestling we did on Compton After Dark. I assume they'll listen to this. I almost asked him to be a part of it. I may ask him to do a separate thing at some point, but we already got 3 people. And I'm a jabberjaw.
Jabber, jab, 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 jabber, jaw. All right.
Every time you say
Exactly,
Compton
I'm a
After
Hanna-Barbera
Dark,
character.
I just imagine you sitting in your room with no pants on, and I was myself, I'm not there yet.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say that. Look, he's showing us a shiny leg. I don't want to see that more. All right. All right. So anyway,
I got my Ninja Turtle PJs on because I'm 45 years old.
That is perfect. Well, okay. So Galahad, I assume, was Night Watchman's understudy, or just like you said, he was.
Yeah,
just
he's a Robin analog.
Okay. So anyway, Ultiman meets up with Galahad, and they find the Beacon, who immediately passes away. And then Dr. Weird shows up, allows her soul to speak a few more words before crossing over. She reveals her killer going by the name of Subhuman. They look to gather other members of the team to investigate exactly who this is. Ultiman faces off with Subhuman, finding him. After finding him, Ultiman faces off with Subhuman and gets some assistance from another hero, a guy by the name of Megaton.
Oh, Megaton, how you doing, man?
Subhuman launches a car at both of them, burying them and leaving. The pair unbury themselves and take off after him. Back at the Hall of Heroes, Galahad finds former Cyclone. We get a name change here. Cyclone changes his name to Overdrive.
Right.
Overdrive.
What's the 90s? You gotta get extreme.
Right. And we learned that Cyclone lost his legs at some point, and the team seemed to have shut down after that. One person had also died. Hummingbird, I think, was. Anyway, the team has gone through some changes, and now it seems like they're coming back together because on the Viewfinder, who pops up but Thunder Girl, T-Girl, as she is called at one point. She shows up over the comms, and she wants to find out what's going on. So they all decide to head to New York, where Subhuman is going as well, and they are about to face off with him. Overdrive is the first to get there, is immediately attacked, but is saved by Thunder Girl. Subhuman then is able to easily subdue Thunder Girl. At the very last panel of this book, Ultiman and Megaton arrive to help out. To be continued.
No.
Not happening.
No.
Does not happen. We do not get a conclusion. So was there a plan to continue after this and it stopped?
What happens is they leave Caliber because they don't like the deal that Caliber offers them. They take their creator-owned stuff to Image. And then when they're talking to Jim Valentino was involved in this, and obviously Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker knew Eric Larson. They were like, hey, guys, we love this Silver Age stuff you're doing, but don't do this. You're not really... we don't need any more modern comics like this. If you're coming over here, do the thing that you're really good at. You're not like, hey, listen, now that we've got Shaq on the team, let's have him handle the ball and beat the press and drive the lane. You're like, hey, just stand over here and shake your guy and dunk him and get fouled. That's what we need you to do. I'm not knocking Shaq at all. It's very important. But they're like, hey, don't do this because you won't do it as well, and we don't need that.
Yeah. And I say it's unfortunate. It's funny because I thought this was the gimmick because, we've been reading, we're up to 5 issues at this point, and I was like, oh, they're just going to leave us in the 90s because there's no other era to go forward to.
Well, I think the original plan was they were going to do an anthology with Caliber. I'm trying to remember. They were going to tell the story, but they were going to tell more stories, more Golden Age style and more Silver Age style stories. Now that they'd established the concept, they can tell stories whenever. They won't tell modern stories. They'll get as late as like the late 70s, maybe even early 80s with some of their Dr. Weird stuff.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Alan Moore Swamp Thing homage stuff, but like they won't do modern 90 modernized shit.
I was hoping that this issue was going to tie in somehow with the previous story. We don't even get a maniacal monkey in this, do we? Like no monkeys whatsoever. The 90s are crime.
Well, we all had zoo books. By the 90s, all the monkeys were gone. We read about this in zoo books.
All right, so yeah.
What do you want me to do about it?
Dean, I give you the floor here. What'd you think of our final issue?
I didn't like that the Beacon died easily, but if she could have defeated the subhuman via sheer legginess, she would have. This is some of the leggiest artwork I've ever seen. They really got across the 90s babe very well. God bless the guards that died. They were going to be shock troops, so better now than later. I like it, but here's the thing. It doesn't feel as good as the rest. There's something about it. I like seeing Megaton, but there's just something about it where you're like, this is good. And I like that other stuff more. I think Larson and Valentino were right. There's something there. I can see the pieces of your soul glimmering in that work more than here. But it's not bad by any means. They get the style down very well. The dialogue is updated. And everybody's always doing cool stuff, muscled up. What's up with Ultiman's daughter, though, who's like, don't go save your friends. Come have some pizza. The fuck's that about? Not a very good daughter. Or you know these people, like, if you're his daughter, right? Like, it's like you probably like, Auntie Beacon's dead, but... I got Papa Murphy's. It's take and bake. It's not even delivery. I picked this up and I have to cook it. Darry's looking bewildered. He doesn't know about take and bake pizza.
I was also thinking, this version of Ultiman is on his last legs. This poor girl probably just doesn't want him to die as he's desperately trying to leap towards the round table building.
That's fair, but that doesn't make for as good of a take and bake pizza joke.
That's true. That's
definitely
by the
something.
way, take and bake pizza is just how it sounds.
It's all put together, not frozen.
You pick it up, you take it home and bake it.
That's right.
Sometimes I think the rest of the country is a joke being played on me.
Having lived in the Northeast, I'm pretty sure the Northeast is a joke being played on the rest of the country.
Oh,
very
good. Very
fucking
good.
Yankees.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is probably a thing I ripped from Dean's Facebook at some point. I'm just floating them anyway.
But no, I mean, great. It's a lot of fun. It evokes the era. It's just not as good as the other stuff.
You mentioned how we've aged up a little bit, Darry. You talked about Ultiman, and it's neat to see them play with this passage of time and how these characters are trying to handle this. We have a lot of the youngsters that have grown up into these rather adult roles now, and times have changed, times are changing. So, Darry, what are you thinking, man?
I agree with Dean. I think it's very obvious that once you get to what would have been at the time contemporary comics, the love for something that isn't there has gone away a little bit. And this one feels more like a product of its times. But again, not like the things that were doing it that weren't. So it was kind of a weird read. I very much appreciated the art. This whole series gave me a big Flex Mentallo vibe, which is one of my favorite comics of all time. And that's a 4-issue series that has a similar feel where it goes through the gold and the silver, the bronze, and what at the time was the modern age. That did a similar thing with the art where the closer you get to the current day, it becomes more exaggerated and more over the top. And I really like the choices they made here. I think it's hilarious that after this thing came out, they get absorbed into the Image universe and help it. Like, I like that Image is like, oh yeah, we recognize you, come on in. But yeah, I was shocked that
not just recognized him, but Mighty Man becomes a part of the Big Bang universe.
The Eric Larson Mighty Man. Oh, okay, good.
Like, he's in a couple issues of Big Bang when they go over to Image, so they don't just embrace. But then I said Savage Dragon guest stars, they intertwine this shit.
Awesome. One of the many wonderful things I can say about Eric Larson is he's not stingy with his characters. If you ask and you treat them with respect, he'll lend them out. Dragon and his cohorts have been in a ton of different stuff. So
we not crowdfunded Freak Force yet.
Can I just say I love Freak Force?
I do too.
I love Freak Force. I love Ricochet. I love Barbaric. I love all of them. I really do. I got nothing bad to say about them. Horridus, that poor little girl. I love that book. I love the wraparound cover. It definitely feels like something that would have been at the time. Even the title change was nice, where it was like suddenly the Big Bang was written in, very modern format. I will say, though, I was very confused about the story. This villain, the antagonist, never refers to himself as the subhuman. The other characters decide that's what his name is. Who is he? Do we have any idea?
None. I don't have a clue. Comes back to obviously killed the human sub, and he realizes.
I think maybe he was. I might have read it. I think he wanted vengeance on him. Maybe it's because he's one of the dudes that the human sub first messed up and experimented on. I want to say there's something to that.
I want there to be time travel involved.
Well, I know you do. If I can give that to you, I will. But no promise.
You've read 1963, right? Because that's got a little bit of time travel.
A little bit, yeah. I've read a little bit of it. Is it Alan Moore?
That's why I asked. I wasn't sure if you had read it, because I didn't know if you were just like, I hate that bearded bastard.
That son of a bitch. All right.
He's an old atomic sub or human sub enemy. That's basically, he comes back to deal with him, and apparently now the Broshan Master is like super powerful and can kill the beacon.
Broshan Master?
Yeah.
As in the bro and the Ocean Master?
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
Again, we'll wrap things up here in a second. It's funny to think about reading this comic that is 30 years old. We just took this real quick snapshot of comics and their style within 5 issues, which is really cool. And to think that, okay, they took issue 4 and they're going to be, let's do this as a contemporary comic. And here we are 30 years later looking at it and going, everything that they're trying to stylistically show you is now passé because we're 30 years older. And we're looking at it with a little bit more of a critical eye, when they were just like, well, no, this is the style of the time. We're grabbing it just like we did with the other ones.
They were building a universe. The idea was they were going to keep telling stories.
Yeah. So I dig it. I appreciate the chance and the opportunity to read this and talk about it with you guys. Learned a lot here tonight that Tom King is not as old as I thought he was when he was writing this book back then.
There's no way for us to know. He's a spook.
Forgot about the time travel CIA shit. Anyway, good book. Any other final thoughts on everything that you've experienced here? Darry, you can go first.
I'm happy to have read it now. I think it's a great experiment. I think it's a great idea. I think it's done with a lot of love, and I was happy to go through it. At times I was like, I wasn't sure if this was too on the nose or not, but again, that's a minor quibble. It's an interesting experiment, if nothing else. For a lot of the earlier stuff, the art is on point, whether or not they're actually getting people from that era or those who understand why certain decisions were made when those books were being drawn. Very well done.
I mean, they did get Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson to do the cover for number 3. So Swanderson team is legendary, and they got Shelley Moldoff to do that one cover. These comics are all still fairly easy to find. If you want to order some of the collections and some of the new print-on-demand stuff, BigBangComics.com, where you can find it. Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker are still doing a great job, but there's new stories, there's new characters like the National Guardsman and people like that. So, I mean, it's something that continues on. And it's weird to think that we're talking about a comic that 30 years ago that was showing us how great comics 30 years before that could be. What a wild ride this 4-color comic book stuff is. In 30 years, there'll probably be somebody doing the same thing. People are doing similar stuff now with Local Man and Blood Squad 7. So this stuff will always be trying to capture that spirit show people what was great about something prior, and bring something new and original to the table at the same time. And Big Bang Comics really did a great job. BigBangComics.com is where you can buy a lot of this stuff. They'll be more than happy to sell you some things.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our discussion on Big Bang Comics numbers 0 through 4 to a close. We had a great time here. We are going to get into plugs. Dean Compton is going to tell you all about the Unspoken Decade and why it's such a great site to go to.
Because I'm very well liked and people think I'm a cool guy. We're the 90s site. We've been doing this for 10 years, having a great time on Facebook, 24,000 followers now. And we're having a great time on the website, too, with articles coming left and right. From Simby Fan, got some other stuff in the can as well. You should search for us on Facebook. It's theunspokenDecade.com. For any of your comic book needs, go to sbcomics.com. Matthew Price, Rachel Price, and Dan will all help you out. Dan Nash will be more than happy to help you out with some comic book choices. sbcomics.com, or look for them on Facebook.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you are probably listening to this podcast on the Source Material Comics feed, and we appreciate that. We have all sorts of great shows here. Unspoken Issues, 90s comics, that's what we focus on. You can go back into the archive and hear all sorts of great discussions about 90s comics. Recently, we aired the Death's Head 2 Volume 1 episode where we talked about issue 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it was a blast. What a wild ride that was. A lot of good times.
Marvel UK, yes.
And then the Source Material Comics podcast, where it's usually me and a couple other people just talking about any comics of any era. Recently, Mark Radlich and I have embarked upon the discussion of Alias, and we just finished up Volume 2 of Alias, which was pretty good. We did all 28 issues. You can stick around and listen to us talk about Purple Man here in a couple episodes as well. And then finally, the Snap Material. That's right, Snap Material podcast where myself and Evan Bevins get together and talk about Marvel Snap. So if you play the mobile card game Marvel Snap, there might be something in there for you to check out. Usually it's about 20 to 25 minute episodes. About 4 of them drop once a month. We talk about the previous season, the upcoming season, and we have our top fives. Our top fives are some of the most fun stuff we ever do, where we just kind of rattle some of our top 5 of underestimated cards, top 5 one-cost cards, things like that. So if you're into that, check it out. We have a good time. That is Darry. Wait, there's Dean Compton. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.